I am at ETSI Security Conference and I'm with Kirsty Paine from Splunk discussing her talk this week on meeting your green data. So thank you, Kirsty, so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's delightful to be here.
Just to start, could you please introduce yourself and your background in security a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Kirsty Paine. I work as a strategic advisor for Splunk. I've been in cybersecurity for nearly a decade now. I started my career with the UK National Cybersecurity Centre, which is a UK government agency. Their remit is to make the UK the safest place to live and work online. And then in September of this year, I started working for Splunk, which is a data platform software as a service company.
Okay, great. And your talk this week is all about green data and sustainability. I think sustainability is not always something that's immediately thought of in the context of data or data protection or cybersecurity even. Could you please outline some of the current issues with sustainability when it comes to these kind of industries?
So I think that there is a parallel to be drawn between sustainability and security. And so for sort of security specialists out there, you might remember, back in the day, a few years ago, when security was really one person's job, one person's remit. It was very focal on that one person, and there wasn't really such a security culture around an organisation. And I think for some organisations, that's where sustainability is right now. It's with one person, it's not very well measured, you don't have proper metrics underpinning what's going on, and you don't have a concrete sense of what's good or bad, and it's not very measurable. So data is key to being able to explain to your C-suite with security and with sustainability exactly what the problems are, what investment you need to improve, or what that percentage would look like. And I think just quantifying some of that stuff and making it a lot more concrete is going to be essential going forward, and explaining to organisations the impact of sustainability measures. And it's a very strong parallel to draw there with security, which I think a lot of people can relate to.
Okay, and what kind of steps do you think can be taken by organisations to meet their sustainability goals in regards to data and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really dependent on the organisation, obviously. The first thing I would say is measure and benchmark where you are, because if you don't know where you are right now, how are you going to sell the improvement that you're making, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's no good saying, oh, after we did all this stuff, we're now this much in our carbon footprint. I have no clue what the improvement is, right? Or the trend, or how that compares to your peers. So there's something about meaningful metrics and making sure that we take things that make sense at the business level as well. So technologists, we quite often get stuck into the ins and outs of the data. We need to make it really meaningful for people. So the first thing is definitely just to measure, and then choose an intervention to make. And that could be a range of things. There's a lot of looking at sort of on-premise technology versus cloud, and actually it's been quite sustainable sometimes to move to cloud, looking at your posture. A lot of large cloud providers run on 100% renewable energy, things like that. That could be an immediate uplift in your carbon footprint, right? An immediate improvement. But it really would depend on the organisational context and the sort of sector you're in as well. Obviously, manufacturing, it looks very different to a technology company.
Okay, and so what would your advice be to organisations that are suddenly looking to improve their sustainability? Because many organisations setting certain goals now with carbon and carbon footprint. So what would be your kind of advice on perhaps where to go or first steps to take?
So first steps to take, if you're very new to this, I would look at the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, the GHG protocol, and that's how many Fortune 500 companies report their carbon footprints. It's a well-established, well-understood metric. So I'd look into that first. If you have Splunk already in your enterprise, there's a free add-on we have called the Sustainability Toolkit. So you could download that, feed in data sources you already have. And that's the important thing. It's data you already have, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to go and collect new data. It's the temperature of your data centers, it's your electricity bills, it's your number of staff, and when the building is used and things like that. It's data you've already got, but plugging that into some sort of calculator. The Sustainability Toolkit is one where then you can calculate your carbon footprint, benchmark, make an adjustment, measure again, and then you've got this kind of virtuous cycle where you're making these improvements or not, and then you can adjust as you need to.
And within organisations, many don't have kind of sustainability officers or people whose roles are particularly dedicated to this. Whose responsibility do you really see this being, and how do organisations who don't have that kind of dedicated person work on this?
It's a very good question, and especially for organisations that are quite small, right?
Yeah.
And so far, I think we've seen a lot of sustainability improvements being made because they're also economic drivers, right?
Yeah.
Like switch the lights off. Oh, that will reduce my electricity bill as well. Fantastic. And I think there's a lot to be said for empowering staff in this space. It actually can be very impactful to say to your staff, you have procurement decision choice over, say, your laptop if you pick for sustainability. And staff, when given that kind of remit, you know, people in general now are very passionate about climate change and very interested in making a difference. So where you have that sort of empowerment, we see employee research groups being set up, employee resource groups being set up where they can get together and, you know, discuss initiatives that they can roll out across the enterprise. So you could start with a kind of grassroots effort in that case. But I think what's important for those organisations is to know that it's coming. There's a lot of regulation that will come eventually around carbon footprints, and there will be a responsibility at C-suite, like we have seen with security. In fact, it very much started as grassroots at that level, and now it's moved much more into a C-suite problem. Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because that was one of the questions I wanted to ask next, was about sustainability requirements, standards in this area, but requirements also within the security space.
Yeah, so kind of making sure that we're making sustainable and secure choices.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't ever want to present this as a trade-off, right? I don't think that's ethical at all. But what I can say is that the more you know what you've got on your estate, that helps you with both security and sustainability. So there are certainly some efforts you can twin and push towards both of those goals. I think a lot of it is knowing what lens you have to apply to that data. So if you are collecting data for security, even just thinking, could I reuse this for sustainability, will ultimately help you in making those metrics more useful and more meaningful.
And are there any compliance requirements at the moment out there?
There's the EU Green Deal, which I won't speak about here because I'm sure there are experts listening much more qualified than I am. But there is kind of EU efforts to have a look, and you'll hear this as well from companies. They put out statements, we will be carbon neutral by 2030, 2040, 2050. So I think that that's a sort of soft compliance. And what we're seeing, actually, a lot of it's being driven by consumer choice. So there are a lot of studies from IBM, from Forbes, from Deloitte, I mean, too many to name. And they show that consumers will prefer a company that is more sustainable, that has sustainability ethics behind what they're doing. So you've got that economic driver, which is no longer just, it will save your electricity bill. It will improve your brand reputation to be sustainable and to have, an upfront kind of report and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be driven still by economic factors, but slightly different in this case.
Okay, and that goes for security companies as well when they're pushing their solutions.
Well, I think for security, for a long time we've seen companies market themselves on, we are super secure, we are super private, and that becoming a brand differentiator. And we are seeing already, and I think we'll continue to see the same thing for sustainability. So it's a very simple parallel to draw out, but something that I think is quite well recognised as well.
Okay, so finally, as we're just kind of running out of time, what are your thoughts kind of for the future of sustainability and security and where the industries are going?
I think industries are coming to places like ETSI, where standards are being developed, is very much at the forefront of innovation. If you want to know where technology is going, come to standards bodies, because that is exactly where things that are being developed now, they will be deployed in 2, 3, 5 years' time even. It gives you such an interesting horizon into the future of technology. And in ETSI specifically, there is so much being done on sustainability and security. So you get that kind of cross-pollination of expertise, which you don't often get in a security specialist organisation or a sustainable specialist. It's about bringing those areas together. So I really think standards is the place to look for the future of where this technology and the trends are going.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you so much, Kirsty. And my final thoughts to share with you. So this ETSI Security Conference has been a great place to see all the different things that we've been doing in security, including sustainability and the kind of roles that people can play in it. However, we are seeing kind of a lack of representation of women within the industry, especially within cybersecurity. I was just wondering what your thoughts were here, or any advice you have for women looking to get into this area.
Yeah, I'd definitely be very encouraging. Please reach out to me personally as well. You can find me on LinkedIn if you'd like to. I'm always happy to give advice to women that are following other women into this industry. I think that can be the most helpful thing, is having a sponsor, having someone to demystify it. I think I would just give the advice of, especially ETSI, it's an incredibly friendly organisation, very welcoming environment. and some of the best technical work in the world gets done here. So I think that's a wonderful environment to start with. I'd really encourage everyone not to hold yourself back, to imagine that standards are like this or the forum will be like this, just to come along and experience it. And have a chat with people beforehand so they can give you the kind of reality of what it's actually like.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee it's not as off-putting or difficult as you think it is. And especially for ETSI, I can speak personally to how welcoming it has been and how easy it has been to work here compared to some other fora that you may know of. So.
Okay, thank you so much, Kirsty, for joining me today and taking the time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here at ETSI Security Conference.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's great to talk to you.